Hi, if you're watching this video, you're likely here to learn how to make fake blood that looks realistic. Um, that, or you're curious as to why somebody is making another how to make fake blood tutorial on YouTube when there's already about a zillion of them up. Yeah, I'm a follower, I admit it. I wear all the current trends and... No, really, I think that this particular recipe hasn't really been done on YouTube yet. It might have been. I don't really know. But I think this offers something that will get you the effect that you want. It's easy. It's cheap. It shouldn't cost you much more than $10, depending on where you buy all of the stuff that you need. And most importantly, it's also edible. So it's safe and it won't hurt your actors. And it will look realistic. Now, this recipe calls for corn syrup. Almost every single fake blood recipe that I have seen calls for corn syrup. It doesn't really matter what type of corn syrup you use. It can be dark or it can be light. It can be name brand. It can be a store brand. Any type of corn syrup will do. Um, Cocoa baking powder. That will thicken the consistency of the blood, but we'll get into that more later. Red and blue food coloring. Green is sometimes used. I prefer blue. Water, that is optional, and I'll tell you why later. And vanilla extract, which is also optional, and I'll tell you why later also. Of course, you'll need something to mix it in, a couple of spoons, and a dish. Something clear or white is preferable because it will show you, you'll be able to see the color consistency better that way. And you need something white to test your blood on once it's all said and made. Okay, what you're going to start off with, of course, is your bowl. Of course, this is what you're mixing it in, although you might be making more fake blood than I am. This is kind of a small batch, so you'll have to kind of compensate a little bit with the ingredients depending on how much you're making, whether it's more or less. This is just a little bit to show you how it's done. And you're going to start off, of course, with your corn syrup. So you're going to start off by pouring your corn syrup into the bowl. I'm going to put it about halfway up, maybe a little less, about a quarter. I'm going to go a little more than that. I'm going to go about half. Again, this is just a little batch that I'm making. You might be making more, so you'll have to compensate for that. Um, and then next, you're going to want to go to your cocoa baking powder. Actually, no. Next, you're going to want to go to your red food coloring, because you got to start off by kind of mixing in the red, and I don't know, put in about 5 or 6 drops, maybe no more than 8. And then you're going to take your spoon. I'm going to use the bigger one for the stirring. And you're going to mix it up. But as you can see, it's very transparent. It's not, doesn't look anything like blood. It kind of looks like dish soap. So this is where this right here, the cocoa baking powder, is going to come into play. So the cocoa baking powder thickens the consistency. It makes it less transparent. The opacity or transparency of the blood kind of makes it look unrealistic when you don't have something in there that thickens it. So I like to use cocoa baking powder. Some people use flour or cornstarch. I like cocoa baking powder because it's already dark and blood is not pure red. It's actually a maroonish type of red, a dark brownish red. So cocoa baking powder being brown already kind of helps darken the mix a bit and make it look a little bit more realistic. But you may need to add a little bit more than what I just did. In fact, I am going to add another about a tablespoonful for this particular mix. Is going to use about 2 tablespoons full, and I'm just going to kind of mix it up. Now this is going to take a couple minutes to mix, to be honest with you, because cocoa baking powder is a little bit chunky and it takes a little while to mix it all up. So instead of making you watch this for the next few minutes, I'm going to go ahead and do what filmmakers call a jump cut, And when I come back, this will be all mixed up magically because of the magic of movie making. There we have it. As you can see, it's all mixed together now. You probably noticed that it kind of looks like a brownish goop. It's not really blood-like at the moment. The consistency is a lot thicker though. Maybe a little too thick. Corn syrup is very sticky and very thick, and adding the cocoa baking powder makes it even, well, not stickier, but thicker. That's kind of the point. That's what you want to do because blood is not transparent. You can't see through it. But blood also doesn't look like brown goop, so you gotta make it look more blood-like. Now, what you want to do first is go to your blue food coloring. And trust me, folks, you do not want to use a lot of this blue food coloring. You just want to use a drop. This is very dark, and it will do exactly what it needs to do with one drop. If you get two in there, don't worry about it. Two is okay, but one is pretty much sufficient. I'm going to mix it up. So we're just going to continue kind of like mixing this in a little bit now. As you can see, let me just tip this towards the camera so you can see it a bit. It's even a darker kind of goopy brown. So you're probably thinking, what happened to making this thing red? Well, again, blood is not exactly red. It's more of a maroon color. Blood isn't this dark either. So we're going to have to go back, of course, to our red. And that's kind of the whole point. You start off with a little red, you make it darker, and then you work your red back into it. Here's the thing. Don't be stingy with the red. Be generous with it. You might even use this whole vial by the time it's all said and done. So, your first squirt should just be quite a bit. Just put it right in there. You can see I used about half of it already. Might even put a little bit more in there. I'm going to leave the cap off just in case I need it again. And now I'm going to go back to stirring it again. Now, as you can see, it's getting redder. Now, of course, we got our little white towel over there to take a look at the color consistency. As you can see, it's kind of red, not quite as red as I want it, so I'm going to go back and just remix it a little bit. Now what I'm going to do is add in more red. I'm just going to squirt in the rest. May just as well make this really the red that I want to. Now don't worry, this isn't going to look too red. It's pretty much in all sense of the fashion still going to look pretty dark. That's what I just gopped onto the towel. Notice how kind of reddish dark it is. And that's kind of what blood looks like. Now, water, what you're going to be using the water for, let me just mix this up again a little bit. Just make sure that's all in there well. Now what the water is used for is to make the blood a little thinner, make it runnier. If you want that effect. Now you're not going to use as much as I put in here unless you have a bigger batch. I'm just going to pour in a little bit of water, just a little bit. It doesn't have to be warm water, it doesn't have to be cold, any type of water will do. And now that that water's in there, I'm going to go ahead and mix it up. And as you can see, it's also not quite as goopy, it's a little runnier. If you want it even runnier, you can add more water in it. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Let me just take my hand here, put it on the hand. You can get a really good runny effect. I'm going to show you why you might want to use vanilla extract. Now you're probably thinking, what importance does vanilla extract have? Well, first and foremost, here's your vanilla extract. You can use imitation if you like. It doesn't really matter. But you don't want to use too much. You're going to just want to use a capful. And again, you're probably asking, why would you use vanilla extract? Well, vanilla extract tastes good. And there are going to be times, if you're a short filmmaker and you're making a horror film, and you're doing like a zombie film or a vampire film, or if you're just going as a vampire or a zombie or something for Halloween, where you're going to have this blood around your mouth and in your mouth, and let's face it, you're not going to want it to taste bad. Add the vanilla extract in. It really gives it a pretty nice taste, and therefore, like, if you're making a zombie film, you can have one of your characters spew blood all over the place, and in the end, your actor isn't going to hate you for having the stuff taste terrible. Fake blood. It's more realistic than anything you're going to be able to buy in a store, unless you shop at a professional FX shop, and then you're going to be paying a lot more. This will get the job done. It looks just as realistic as anything you'll buy in an FX shop, and you'll get results like this. Or you can get results like this as well. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I sincerely hope that this recipe works for you. Um, this is me signing off. Have a good time.